What is happening to the Igbos in Nigeria, specifically in Lagos, did not start today. It is only increasing. And we are getting to see more of it because of the social media. So, what you don't know about me is that I started living in Lagos from the age of 8. I did my primary and secondary school there. And I can tell you, Lagos is a place where if you are not from the north, or Malam, then you are assumed to be from the east, or Monna. So I grew up being called Omo Igbo. At first, I didn't understand. So I tried to explain. Then I got tired. I just accepted it. And by accepting it, I was given the same treatment as every Igbo person was given. One thing about me is that I hate oppression. I hate it with passion, although I can overlook being bullied. But I can't stand watching someone else being oppressed. So the only time I fought in school was in defense of other people being oppressed. In my primary school, it was mostly the minority children, like me. In secondary school, the only time I fought was in defense of an Igbo girl living with sickle cell. That Igbo girl was thin. She was most times absent in class because she was often sick. But every time she came to school, Bosse will not let this girl rest. Bosse will pick on her and beat her till people pulled her away. The first time my Omonna friends and I saw it, we stepped in. And the second time during break, we stepped in again. This big bully got angry that we dared, and she picked on me. Maybe because I was the most gentle, but that day, I couldn't take it. I dealt with that big bully. By the time I finished with her, the fairyland was on fire. The fairyland, yay! Omo Natin Obose. That was the cry. And they carried me up. I was almost feeling like David in the Bible. But that was the end of Bosse's oppression. That was the day I accepted that since I'm not Omo Yoruba, or Omo Hausa, or Omo Malam, I fall into the category of Omo Igbos, Nigerians. Whether we like it or not, whether we say it or not, there's always this silent separation between us. I have watched so much injustice against people, especially the Igbos. Once I watched an Igbo graduate driving keke in Lagos get slapped around by touts, even before he could bring out his ticket to show that he had paid. I was pained. I watched a Yoruba conductor arguing with an Igbo man, and before I knew it, the other Yorubas in the bus joined hands with the conductor to beat up this Igbo guy. These are normal occurrences. These are everyday occurrences in Lagos and other places in Nigeria. You see it in the markets, in schools. But somehow, I always found myself caught in the middle because I couldn't just look away from injustice. I couldn't just walk away and pretend that it was okay because I was not the one involved. And when it comes to the North, I did my youth service in Yobe State, a Sharia state. I can never forget that journey. On my first day, I arrived in Yobe very early. So I wanted to hide in front of a house until the day was bright before I continued to the camp. That was when somebody called me. He asked me, "Is this your first time here?" And I said, "Yes." So he told me to read the inscription at the entrance and interpreted to me that it meant do not enter, or out of bounds, or do not trespass. It was that man who gave me the first briefing about the do's and don'ts in a Sharia state. And I can never forget the day I and my colleagues were attacked by a group of children called the Almajiris. These children picked up stones and started throwing it at us. And according to their explanation, it was because we were wearing trousers. Inside the camp, those khaki and short knickers, I asked myself that day if I was still in my country because it didn't feel so. And I wondered why I could not be respected because I had a different culture and did not believe in what they believed. And I asked myself, is it okay to throw stones at a human being just because the person is not dressed the way you want the person to be dressed? That day, I and my colleagues were in shock. Did we deserve to be stoned just because they did not approve of our dressing? Inside the camp, I remember running into hiding every time there was a religious crisis. I and my colleagues. And I was very happy when my service year was over and I returned to Lagos because it didn't sure feel like home. But what finally pushed me to leave Lagos and return to my state was the 2023 election. I was told to leave my polling unit if I wanted to vote for Peter Obi. I refused. I stood my ground. And so did the other supporters of Peter Obi. We stood up for ourselves. And it was a win-win. We still had faith and love for this country, Nigeria. But you see, after the court judgment, I lost hope in Nigeria. And so did many other people. Just last week, I learned that one of my elder brothers was one of those people who started Radio Biafra back in those days. He grew up in Yoruba land. He answered their name, but came back to Biafra to join Biafra soldiers. To me, that action speaks a lot. Now who accepts you? Now you go fit call brother. He must have suffered the same thing as I did. The same thing many Igbos are suffering now in this country. So when you say one Nigeria, I'm sorry. You cannot force unity where there is no justice. You cannot force love where there is no respect. Sometimes separation is not hatred. It is healing. I am here to tell you that I have lost all hope in the unity of this country. And so have many others. Honestly, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for the Nigeria you believe in. I sincerely believe that the best thing that can happen to this country right now, in this present situation, is either a restructuring, giving room for every region to lead and manage their own resources, or a total separation. Not out of hatred, but out of understanding, respect for our different cultures, traditions, and beliefs. Anyone telling you to resist a separation move is definitely benefiting from the disaster we are seeing now in this country.